Hello everyone. This is Suzanne Knaber-Nicole from Police Science Doctor, and welcome to the second session in our 3-session series on handling stress and getting resilience to it in policing. So this is a free 3-session workshop series I'm doing with my lovely co-host Ginny McKenna, whom I'm going to get on in a minute. And today's session is on coping with stress and trauma in policing. We had a session 2 days ago that was about anxiety and depression in policing. And next week, we've got our next and last session that's going to be on Wednesday, but at the same time as this one. And that's actually working through stress in policing. What we're doing in these sessions, in these workshops. So as a workshop, you're going to go away with a tool, something that you can use for your own resilience, for your own handling of stress, anxiety, or whatever it is that we're discussing that day. So you're going to come away with a tool that you can actually use. But you'll also hear about, discussions and Ginny has some fantastic scientific facts for you that she will share. And we'll also have a lovely community. So people who are watching this, either Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, please introduce yourselves in the chat. It's always nice to see where people are from, to say, hi, I'm watching from wherever it is. If you've got any questions that you want to ask me or Ginny, then please type it into the chat, starting with the letter Q. Let me just show that here. I have one prepared. Yes, so that's prepared. So then I'll know, because I'm going to go through the, I'm going to be watching the comments once in a while, and if there's a question, I'm able to pull it out. And then I'll know that I'm going to ask these questions in between where, all the content we've got planned for you today. So if you haven't registered yet for today, I suggest you do, because so I know you're watching this already, so it's not that you need to register in order to watch. But the thing is, if you register, then I know that you're interested in these particular workshops, then I can send you a certificate of attendance for all 3 workshops. I'll do that in the next few days for the first 2. I will also send you a discount code for the course that Ginny has put together. Now, Ginny is a stress coach who specializes in police, and which is why she's qualified to run these workshops. And we've put together a course that you can take in your own time. It's going to launch on Saturday the 19th, so you can enroll up to next Friday. And you can do it in your own time. It's discreet, and you can do it at work or at home, whatever you can. Obviously, if you're doing it at work, please check that that's okay. I don't want you to get into trouble because I just gave you permission to do it at work. That's not really for me to say. So go to www.policesciencedoctor.com/SRW. So you get the certificates. I will email you the replay links as well, and you will get the 10% discount code, of course, to the course we're doing. We will tell you a little bit more about that later. First of all, each of these workshops is going to be a standalone session. So don't worry if you haven't watched the first one. I'm going to recap on who I am. Jenny's going to reintroduce herself, just so you know. In case you're wondering what that black thing might be, it is indeed a nylon sock over my microphone. So I was told that's a good pop filter. And I did have some kind of wire frame around it that was used to be a coat hanger, but that didn't work so well. So it's just a lovely sock, just to get that out there for full transparency. Right, who am I to be talking to you? I'm Suzanne Knaber-Nicole. I'm an investigative psychologist, and I live in the UK. I was working in UK policing for over a decade in a variety of roles. I was a uniform PCSO in London. I was an investigator. I interviewed suspects in the custody investigation suite. I worked on evidence-based policing, and I was a major crime researcher. So a number of different experiences there. I've got a PhD in investigative psychology. My thesis was behavioral using behavioral advice for major crime, behavioral investigative advice for major crime investigations, something like that. It was really interesting. I'm just a little bit all over the place at the moment, which is why I don't remember my own thesis title. And I started Police Science Doctor about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. It did have the name Dr. IPIP first, and then EVP Doctor is Police Science Doctor, and hopefully it's going to stay that way. What Police Science Doctor does is basically an opportunity for me to try and bring all the research and science and knowledge of police science to the police practitioner, because there's really not that many things that do that. If you look at medicine, nurses and doctors usually use the most current guidelines and, the most current scientific knowledge in the everyday work. In policing, we don't do that. You join the police, you've got a training course for a few weeks or a few months, you go out on the street, you only retain 10% of classroom-based training anyway, and then everything else is on the job and you develop as you go, and maybe you've got a refresher training here or there, but who's informing you about the latest knowledge of how to avoid false confessions, how to make sure you don't impact somebody's memory when you're interviewing them, so that's something I'm trying to do. I go through that research, I turn it into a video, I send it out to everybody who's on the email subscriber list. You can go to policesciencedoctor.com and join the list for free, and every Tuesday I will email you 3 golden snippets of information, the police science snippets, and I'll tell you how you can use them as well in the evenings. And there's always the link to the original article, the originating document. Everything I do is accountable. And so that's what I do as Police Science Doctor. I've also got the Police Science Doctor Academy, which is an online learning platform on which is going to be populated with ever more courses. So at the moment, there's 2 free courses you can do there. They're introductory, they're by me. So one is how to do evidence-based policing in 4 steps, and the other one is behavioral science in policing. And you can access those for free. As I said, just go to policesciencedoctor.com and then click on Learn on the top. And the first course, the first proper feature-length course we're offering on there is the one that Ginny created, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So that's me. I'm now going to introduce my co-host, Ginny. Hello, Ginny.
Hi, Suzanne.
Now, first thing I'm going to say about her is she's an ex-cop. She's been to hell and back. She had it all, depression, anxiety. She was suicidal. Came out of policing, dealt with all that, became a coach, and now she actually helps people like her in the past who didn't have any help to work through all of that. So she's an accredited coach, and she works on stress and resilience in policing. And now you give us another introduction. Give us a bit about your background and experiences.
Okay, I don't know what else you can say, to be honest, but yeah, thank you. I've been a cop in the UK for 21 plus years. All of them spent at the rank of police constable, and all, apart from the last 18 months, out on the street dealing with everything that cops have to deal with. My last 18 months was spent in the area control room, so believe me, that's a stressful environment. I went through numerous instances of issues with stress, as Suzanne quite rightly said, stress, anxiety, trauma, PTSD, even contemplated suicide many, many years ago. Thank God I didn't go there, and I'm perfectly happy because I didn't. I didn't get any help back then when it all kicked off back in the, I heard to say it, the late 80s, early 90s. There wasn't any help. And has it improved significantly? I wouldn't say it's improved significantly, but then we still have the stigma in society around mental health anyway. But I did 21 plus years on the street. So I've been there, I've done the job, I've dealt with all the usual stuff, the drunks, the addicts, the domestics, the murders, everything else that's come in. I've attended some, if not all of those at some point or numerous occasions throughout my career. And I chose to retire early because I realized that stress was once again getting a hold of me and it was affecting my health. And I'd already retrained because I knew at some point my career in the police would come to an end to become a certified life coach. And I did that in 2019. And I actually retired on the 30th of June last year. So I'm coming up to my anniversary. And I've been coaching cops ever since to help them with stress, anxiety and overwhelm, and upselling myself. I've just completed some more training, which means now I can deal with people right across the line of this, right up to the end of trauma and PTSD as well. And I'm continuing to upgrade my skills so that, whoever sits in front of me, I can help them. And that's pretty much me.
Fantastic. Good. So extremely qualified to be running this workshop, as I promised. We've got people from Sweden. Hello, May-Britt. She was there with us on Tuesday as well. We've got someone from Australia on a night shift. Good day to you. Fantastic to have you. Thank you very much. We've got people from Manchester and Wales, so it's great to see you guys here. Kaylee was here on Tuesday as well. Thank you for coming back. And I've put a link in the comments in the chat where you are. That's something I was going to say as well in terms of housekeeping. If you can just open a document on your computer next to where you're watching that, and the links that I'm going to put in there, rather than trying to write them, me showing them on the screen, you writing them out, just copy them onto a text document. And then after the session, of course, because now you're fully concentrating on us, but after the session, please go away and have a look at those links. So the link I put in there right now was this interview that I did with Ginny. So, I extracted some of the things she said, just wanted to stop the pain and despair. We're the defenders of life and property, and that's why it's so difficult to ask for help as a police officer. It can be hard to accept that the strong, brave, dependable police officer suddenly can't do it anymore. If you had a mental health issue, you were seen as broken. I'm sure that seems familiar to some of you. So have a look at that video and at that interview I did with Ginny, and you can find out a lot more about her background. So we're also running a competition during this. So towards the end of the workshop, I'm going to ask you a competition question, and the first person to email me the correct answer to contact@policesciencedoctor.com is going to win Ginny's course for free. Now, that's not a bad deal, is it? So we will get to that later. Why did we set up this workshop series? Now, we did a mental health webinar not so long ago, and I had interviewed 12 people for that, to share their knowledge and ideas and experiences. And there were more people that I would have wanted to interview. So we're probably going to hold another one because it really struck a chord with so many people. I don't think there's ever been a worse point in policing for mental health, because the stresses have never been the same. You're not constantly on video when you're doing something wrong. Everybody does something wrong in their job, but you're not being filmed and then plastered all over the media for it. I think policing is the only profession where this happens. Then there's COVID, where you're being vilified because you need to enforce the rules to keep people safe, because some people just don't have, the moral understanding to stick to rules for their own reasons. So sometimes you need to impose that. So it's been very difficult. And then the thing with, George Floyd last year, and just everything kicked off. So it's bad. And Ginny is someone who can help. And yes, she's been helping people one-on-one, but we put this together into an online form so she can help a lot more people, whether you're in Scotland where she is, whether you're wherever in the world. As long as you understand English, you can do this online course in your own time. And I'm just going to show you the image of that. The course is called Emergency Stress Pit Stop, and it basically gives you resilience and the tools to work on your reaction. And rather than being in a constant state of flight or fight, you recognize what's going on and you learn to get control over your body and your symptoms. And Ginny, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the transformation that people get and what people that you've already worked with have said about working with you?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that keeps getting repeated time after time after time is the fact that being an ex-cop who's done the job for a lot of years, experience everything that goes on in the job, the resource cuts, the being dragged out on your days off for a court appearance or because they need more staff. So I've done all that, and I've seen a lot of the trauma that we see because it goes with a job. But I think what they love about working with me is the fact that I am an ex-cop who's also a trained life coach, and that for them, they don't have to explain the job. It's just simply, I went to a job, and then they get on and talk to me about it. And I'm not looking for the gory details, because I know what it looks like to see a headless body. I know what a bad accident looks like. There are a lot of people out there who are very, very good at what they do. But if you've not lived the life of a cop, it's very difficult to understand, the things they're talking about. And that's why we get so stressed and so traumatized, because it's a constant in your working life. So things that you're going to get out of this course, and like a lot of my other clients have got through working with me, is total confidentiality. Somebody who gets it. And that's it. That's all you need to know. Somebody who gets it. And you don't have to go any further with that. You're supported, you're understood. And I got out of that by myself, which was a foolish thing to do, but there was nothing there to help me. I don't want other people to feel that they have to do that journey alone. And so what's great about working with me now, whether it's on a one-to-one or indeed doing the course, is that you're fully supported. You've got someone there who's going to support you, because that's absolutely something we will do through this course as well, because there will be a live Q&A with me. And if somebody is really struggling and needs additional help, do you know what? I'm on at the end of an email address, and I'm happy to do that, because for me, it's important that nobody has to go what I went through, that they see an opportunity to step away from that darkness that I suffered. And I've had lots of people who, one person who gave me a recent testimony, which was absolutely amazing. His family saw him as a rock. His wife and children saw him as a rock. and he felt like he was crumbling inside. And through being able to talk with me and work with me on things and explore things with me, he was able to actually step away from what he saw as just this big precipice and then start to become again the rock that his family were used to seeing. He had more self-awareness, more understanding of who he was and how he was impacted, so that he was better prepared for the next time. So these are the kind of things you're going to get, through working with me. But for sure, the biggest one has always been, and I get it every single time I work with a client, it's just so good to work with an ex-cop who gets the job.
And that's what's something you just said now. He's working with you, gave him the tools to deal with it better next time. And that's the thing. We can't stop the traumatic events that are going to, happen to you when you're out and about. We can't stop you from seeing the bodies and, what's going on, what people do to each other. You're always going to have that, but how you respond to that, that's what can change, and respond to it in a much better way. So that's something we want to do. And also, if as an organization, if you want to send more than 5 people, so 5 people or more on it, you get a 30% discount on the course. It's only £350 anyway. That's less than you would pay for a series of 6 sessions with a counselor if you went privately. Probably much less than you would pay for that. But you get, organizational discount, 30% off if 5 or more people. And the other thing is, we worked that out in last workshop, didn't we? Ginny quoted some statistics that I think the absence of a police officer for 2 days or 2 or 3 days or something like that already costs as much as this course. So if this course can set you up with the skills for life that you need to go through policing much better and with much more resilience to stress and the pressures, then that's already paid for it in itself.
Just going back to the costings there, Suzanne, the figures I gave on the other workshop were for Police Scotland, because that's where the figures came from.
Right. Okay.
They average out the number of days sickness taken due to psychological disorder in Police Scotland works out at four days per employee or police officer. So 4 days is costing you more than this course will cost you.
Yeah, there you go.
Depending on where you are on the pay scale, you're looking at what, 600 quid if you're at the bottom end, you're looking at 800 quid if you're at the top end of the pay scale. This course is considerably less than that.
Right. So, and I've put my email address already in the chat for later for when I ask a competition question. But now, so we're talking about stress and trauma and policing. So, Ginny, what is the prevalence of that and what is the impact of that in policing?
Well, let me quote you some figures, Suzanne. In the UK, police officers and staff are 5 times more likely than the general population to suffer with PTSD. In the USA, a recent survey carried out in August of just last year, where they had a selection of 1,355 active duty police officers to measure their psychological health, 47% of them screened positive for PTSD. That's 9 to 10 times greater than the general population. In Canada, we're looking at 30% screening positive for PTSD, and in Australia, it's 20%, where the general population will be 1 to 3%. So I think the figures speak for themselves.
How does it impact officers when they carry on going to work with it? Because they do. Most of them do still drag themselves to work. How does that impact them and how they police?
Absolutely. I did it, and I know of a large number of colleagues who have done exactly the same thing, because it seems to be just the way the cops are. They feel that they have to go to work, that they're depended upon, which they are in a lot of situations. They're never going to be as good at their job when they are struggling with stress or PTSD. The first thing that happens when you get overly stressed is that you are triggered, and the whole process in your head with the amygdala, it kicks out your prefrontal cortex, the part of that makes decisions. Okay, so if you're not making good decisions, it's because you're overly stressed, and that's just going to continue. So the level of service that you're giving to your job and to members of the public is going to be significantly reduced. Now, I quoted a figure, I think, on Tuesday there, that 80% of workplace accidents in the USA have actually been attributed to stress or stress-related things like being distracted or being too tired. So, and again, we're just a reflection of our society. So you can drag that across to policing as well. When you're tired, and you're going to be tired with shift work anyway, but when you're stressed, guess what? You're even more tired, because what happens when you are stressed, quite apart from the decision-making angle, is that other parts of your system start to shut down. So your immune system no longer works properly. So you're very susceptible to illnesses. Nutritionally, you could be eating the best diet in the world, but guess what? Your body's not taking those nutrients in, because actually it doesn't care if you're eating a good diet and that's good for you. You're having that green smoothie you should be having, because quite frankly, it doesn't care. It wants to keep you alive. And using energy to be able to digest your food correctly, or to be able to make informed decisions that require you to be cognitively processing things and keeping you safe from a cold or flu, is not important at that point. So you're going to suffer with poor decision making, poor health. You're going to struggle with not being able to sleep. So you're compounding the problem with shift work anyway, in not being able to sleep. And we already know that there are horrific figures in terms of if you work rotating night shifts. If you work them for more than 5 years, you're 11% more likely to die early than someone who's never worked shifts. You're going to be 23% more likely to die from cardiovascular disease and 25% more likely to die from lung cancer, and be more susceptible to cancers because you've worked night shift.
Sorry, I'm smirking because I'm just worried that we're going to get sued by people refusing to do night shifts now.
Well, do you know what? It's part of the job. You join it, you know you're going to do that. But again, within the course, there are ways to sleep better. There are ways to change things in your life. You know, we're not talking about huge things here. We're talking about little things that can make a huge difference. And that's the important thing. Whether you choose to carry on being a cop is up to you. And if you do, night shift comes with a package.
Did you yourself suffer any of the the stereotypical symptoms of PTSD? Flashbacks, night terrors, anxiety, and all of that. Did you experience that yourself?
I didn't get flashbacks, but I certainly got anxiety. The sound of a police siren used to send me into the fetal position and rocking backwards and forwards. Couldn't cope. Would go to bed at night, my head would hit the pillow because I'd be exhausted, but then I'd be awake all night because I was anxious about the next day and what I was going to have to face. So for sure, I've suffered that. We're all different how we deal with it. We're all different how we're impacted with it. But yeah, I've suffered all of that. And I ended up being a type 2 diabetic. And 90% of chronic illnesses and diseases have some level of stress as part of the contributory factor to why you're unwell. So think about it: not sleeping, not eating properly, being on night shift. Is it any wonder my body said, give it up? And the next thing I know, I've got type 2 diabetes. That's down to the job. It's down to being stressed in the job. But there are ways you can help yourself and look after yourself better. And had I have known that then, I wouldn't be in this position now of being a type 2 diabetic.
So at this point, I'd like to issue an apology to poor Marshall Hoggart, who's on a night shift in Australia and watching us, saying these statistics are not very encouraging at 1:22 a.m.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Marshall. Like I said, there's stuff you can do to sleep much better. So if sleeping is an issue for you, we can get you better sleep. I don't know what else we can do about that. Unfortunately, those are the stats, and it's well publicized everywhere.
Okay. I'm going to play the first short clip now. It's taken from the mental health webinar that we held a few weeks ago. It's from Dr. Jacqueline Drew from Australia at Griffith University. I think that's in Brisbane, although I don't know where Brisbane is in Australia. But she's got some very interesting information for us here. So listen to that.
So when we think about the mental health of our police, our mind immediately really goes to the traumatic events that our police officers experience. So it might be attending a suicide, a fatal road or traffic accident, child abuse, or the physical dangers that our police face at the hands of offenders. And that's what we conceptualize as trauma or critical incident stress. But there's actually a couple of other factors that we really need to understand and think about much more. So the other factors include operational stress, which causes significant psychological harm. Operational stress are those things like shift work, disrupted eating and sleeping patterns, and also having unreasonable workloads, for instance. The other group of factors which I'm really interested in and we need to learn much more about is organisational factors, and they cause a lot of harm as well. These are things like leadership in our agency and supervision, feelings that the organisation's not just and fair in the way they deal with employees, feeling unsupported by police agencies are key elements of stress that police experience on a day-to-day basis. So while we know that trauma is really prevalent and impactful in policing, and we can see that because we see the level of post-traumatic stress and the levels of PTSD that we have in our police populations, we now have really a growing evidence base that suggests that these operational and organisational factors are potentially causing even more harm than critical incidents and traditional trauma of policing. What they found is that non-traumatic stresses are close to twice as likely to be stronger and more harmful than those traumatic factors that lead to things like depression and anxiety. So non-traumatic stress is much more strongly associated with poor mental health outcomes than traumatic exposures. So what that is telling us is that what is harming our police officers the most is actually the organisation and the job factors associated with policing, opposed to our traditional view that it is all about trauma.
So, Ginny, that was actually news to me when I first heard about that. I was not aware of it. You know, as Dr. Drew saying that, people assume it's the traumatic incidents that we go through, but there's actually organizational and operational stresses that are much worse. What is your take on that, Ginny?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I would definitely say that for sure. You know, like anybody else who's seen a hanging body or a murder locus or a bad accident, yes, you've been exposed to trauma, without a doubt. But for me, I mean, I just explained there about the issues I've had with operational stress that led to me getting type 2 diabetes. Totally get what she's saying, because for me, organizational and operational stress have been the ones that have really, really affected me. And you know what? I was actually made to feel like kind of man up. You know, it's just the way the job is. It's the way we've always done it. Get over it. You know, that didn't happen in my day. You know, you're obviously not weak. You're weak. You can't deal with things. And I used to sit there and think, oh God, you know, why can't I just deal with these? These are nothing. But, you know, having seen the information that Dr. Drew gave us, wow, that just, it was a huge light bulb moment for me when I first heard that, because I thought, my God, that's exactly the ones that pushed me over the edge. It wasn't the trauma that pushed me. It was the operational and organizational stresses that pushed me, and were the ones that kept pushing me. But I was made to feel like I was weak, that I shouldn't have been a cop if I can't deal with that kind of stuff. And basically, man up, you know, grow up here. That's the kind of thing you get told. And the reality is, you know, I suffered because I wanted to do a good job, but you've got that continuous pressure to hurry up, get on with it, and go to the next job. Stop caring is another one that I've been told to do. You go to your boss, you go and you say, look, I'm really struggling. That's really great, Ginny, thank you very much, as they lead you back out the door. And you're like, well, where's my support? I've not had the opportunity to do any paperwork on reports for the last 3 weeks. And I'm asking for paperwork time because I know it's building up now. And it's like, no, we haven't got time. Well, you're not worrying about it, but it's certainly worrying me. You know, I saw 1,000,000% operational organizational stresses were absolutely the most difficult thing for me, far more than trauma.
Yeah, I just saw May Britt. She's I think she's a Secretary General, or a secretary definitely in the International Police Association. She's based in Sweden. She just said that in Sweden you can so if you request not to work night shifts after the age of 55, you will get that request granted. However, lots of people continue to do it because they get more money, and they never consider the shortened lifespan. I don't think that's very common knowledge, and it's definitely something that people would need to consider. And I have wondered, when I had to be on a shift pattern which was not very flexible or forthcoming, aren't there people who maybe prefer night shifts? Can we not keep it sort of more permanent? Some people might like to do Fridays and Saturday nights because it suits their family life. Do we have to make every police officer go through the same shift? So can we, you know, well, the whole shift is a different topic. And thanks, Marshall, for educating me about Brisbane and Queensland. That's good to know. And Kaylee saying, I agree, incidents seemed easier to cope with than the organizational factors like the unreasonable workload. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Totally.
Because you can decide how you deal with an incident and you do it to the best of your abilities. And in most cases, you will have been trained to do that. What they don't train you to do is how to handle stress and overload and, work environments. And that's a big issue here. Right. So actually, Ginny, you've got a tool online that people can use to assess their stress score. Can you tell us about that? And I'll put the link to that. It's free, isn't it?
It's absolutely free. Yes, it's
I'll put the link in the chat now.
Yeah, it's a score app, and it's about managing your stress levels. It's trying to give you the opportunity to look at your stress levels from 4 different angles. There are 4 different categories. You'll be looking at the physical symptoms of stress, the cognitive stress symptoms, emotional symptoms, and then behavioral symptoms. It's a matter of answering some questions so that you can effectively give yourself an opportunity to score where you're at with things. It's surprising actually how until you actually start to look into stress, you don't actually appreciate how much it will impact you. I never knew that a lot of the pains and aches and pains I was getting was actually stress related. I thought it was old age. I'm sure there are some of them in there that are old age, quite frankly. But the level of physical pain I was going through, when I stopped being stressed, those disappeared. And there's lots of other things. And how are you affected cognitively? You think you're doing a great job, but then when you start to look at the questions and answer them honestly, you'll see that actually it does impact me there, it does impact me there. So you come at it from 4 different angles. It will give you a score. It will tell you, where you're at on the stress level. And at the end of that, when you get the results page, which will get emailed to you, you'll have the opportunity to book a free session with me for us to talk about your challenges and what are the next steps to take. Or you can actually click on a link to get a free ebook about stress, which will give you a lot more information around stress and plus give you some of the techniques and tools that you can use to help alleviate that.
Do you mind giving us a quick summary of the impact, the symptoms and impact of stress and trauma on your mind and body, just so we're clear on how, it's not just, it's just a bit, I'm stressed. I'm stressed today because it's more than that, isn't it?
Yep. You're talking about things like, for instance, your behavior may change. Okay. So it may be things like you can become more withdrawn from people that you care about. You may become particularly withdrawn in your relationship. And I'm sure there's quite a lot of cops out there will be the first to say marriages don't seem to last very long in the police service. And I'm not really surprised because we don't share the trauma that we deal with or the stress we deal with, but we do impact other people with it because of the way we become. And we become very withdrawn and we want to be away from other people. Your decision-making processes are obviously going to go out the window, as we explained, because when you're continually in that heightened state of stress, your prefrontal cortex really isn't working properly. Physically, you could have aches, pains, you could have regular illnesses. You've always got that niggling cold or sore throat or a flu symptom coming along. Well, again, that's linked to the fact that when you're continually stressed, the amygdala shuts down your immune system, so you're wide open to picking up any bugs that are coming about. You're probably going to be struggling to sleep because your head's either thinking about something you've done wrong and you're feeling depressed about things that have happened, or you're probably more likely to be worrying about things that are coming up that are actually not in existence right now, but you're already starting to worry about something that hasn't happened. What else have we got? So that's cognitive, behavioral, physical. It's going to impact you in every area of your life. There isn't anywhere it isn't going to impact you. It's just such an overwhelming thing. And it's, to be honest, this has been going on for years in society. It's been constant in the police service and emergency services, and it's almost like no one talks about it. But you can guarantee that you're going to be suffering with at least some of those issues: cognitive, behavioural, physical. They're going to continue and just progressively get worse. You may find that you start self-medicating. I know of someone who used to come off a night shift and drink half a bottle of red wine before she went to bed. 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, I'm not passing judgment. I'm not passing judgment. But there has to be something wrong when that's what you have to do to be able to get to sleep. It may be that one can of beer that you had at the end of a shift when you go home, put your feet up and watch a bit of telly, suddenly becomes a 6-pack. You may start smoking more. You may even start to use some sort of drug. Now, be that prescribed or recreational. And again, I'm passing no judgment, because people do what they have to do to survive. It's not necessarily what they should be doing. But
they're probably thinking that this is their coping mechanism, isn't it? But actually, it's just dampening the symptoms. And you can dampen the symptoms all you like. The problem is still there. I mean, poor Marshall's probably sitting in his night shift in Australia thinking, oh, I'm going to die because of this night shift. So, how much longer have I got?
Please don't think that. Please don't go there.
You're fine. You've got great weather over there and you're out of lockdown, hopefully. So, but yeah, I'm going to play you another video that is also very interesting and relevant to the point.
I dealt with many traumatic incidents during my time in the police for my 5 years, and not once did I ever admit to myself that I had perhaps my own mental health problems, because the police have a culture where you go again, because the way the shifts work, and because the police life consumes your life. If you've seen traumatic incident for a couple of times on shift or whatever, the next day you go again, the next day after that you go again, and you never actually stop to understand your own mental health and why things have affected you, or to talk about it with colleagues and stuff, because you don't feel like you have that safe space to be able to talk about it, especially younger cops coming in who have not ever had to deal with these kind of things in their life, and now all of a sudden dealing with these kind of things, and having these hardened cops, so to speak, believe that you just get on with it, make jokes, and you move on with your life. Your colleagues and that culture of we don't need this, we'll just move on from it. We're police officers who are hardened, and we need to get on with it because we need to desensitize situations. We make jokes to make it better and stuff. However, make jokes all you want and maybe try to desensitize the situation all you want, but deep down, when you're going to bed each night, you're alone with your own thoughts, and your thoughts will always go back to the stuff you'd seen. And you don't make any jokes when you're about to go to bed at night, but you don't have anybody else there who's your colleagues who to make jokes and to just take away the seriousness of the situation. And in that way, it then ingrains in your brain, and you're thinking about it over and over again. Then you go into the shift next day, and perhaps you may want to talk about it, but it's forgotten about, and you move, and your colleagues have moved on, and now they're talking about other stuff that's nothing to do with mental health. They're not talking about the incident that you've perhaps seen.
There you go. So the big problem is that you can't talk to anyone at work. I actually released one of my police science snippets this week was from a study done. Was it Iceland? I don't remember where it was, but it was some research done that showed that police officers who have good support from their colleagues are less likely to suffer from PTSD symptoms than those who don't have that support, regardless of those traumatic incidents. So it's the support counts for so much. And what Rob just explained to us there was that often you can't talk to your colleagues about it because everybody's putting on a brave face. He's talking a lot about hardened cops. So you come into the job sensitive, relatively normal, having been a normal member of the public, and you're exposed to things day after day after day. And that's how perhaps trauma can get worse and build up, because you can't talk to anyone about it. What do you do with that? And that's actually the skill that is that Ginny is teaching today. So as a workshop, you're going to come away having learned something. What Ginny taught you on Tuesday was two things. One was the breathing technique, to basically signal to your body to stand down, that the situation is not as stressful as it wants to react to it. And also the grounding and the thought interrupters. Today, Ginny is going to talk to you about something you can do if you feel that you can't talk to your colleagues about something horrible that you've experienced, and maybe you can't talk to your family. Now, your family may not get it. It may be too much for them to talk about, I saw brains everywhere. I had to scrape, somebody's nose off my boot. Whatever it was, whatever you just gone through. Do you want to necessarily, bring that into your family home? Maybe you don't, but maybe nobody at work wants to talk about it either. So what do? So Ginny is now going to teach you a skill, so a tool that you can use for these situations when you have experienced something and there's no one there to help you.
Okay, Suzanne, what I'm talking about is journaling. And before everybody switches off, what journaling will help you do, if you're not in the position to have the peer support, which works incredibly well, and you don't have someone who you can have that conversation with to help you process the event that you have seen or experienced, then journaling is the next best thing. Now, we're talking about either writing it down, as in like a diary, or you could even be recording it on your phone to play back and have that conversation. But what it's allowing you to do is it's allowing you to revisit the incident afterwards when you're no longer involved in it, and kind of a little bit more detached from the incident itself. But it's going to give you the opportunity to work through it for yourself. But it's really important that you ask yourself certain questions. And those questions are, who was there? Because we need to get a really good feel for what was going on and who else was in the incident with you. What actually happened? Where did it happen? And when did it happen? And then the next bit is probably going to be the hardest thing for most cops to do, is how did it make you feel? And what thoughts did you have? And they're probably going to be the toughest two of those questions for you to deal with. I get that, because we don't express our feelings very often. But it's really, really important that, you take time out with a cup of coffee or whatever, sit back later and scribble some things down, but work through those questions and try and do that every time, because that's leading you through the incident in a way that will help you start to see what happened, what your reaction was. And from that, you can then see, well, looking back on it now, could I have done something differently? Was I prepared for that, or was I ill prepared for that? So it gives you the opportunity then to say, right, well, what else could I have done? How could I have dealt with that differently so that it didn't impact me in the same way that it has impacted me? And I think that's really, really important. So we're not only looking at the incident itself, we're looking at how it made you feel, what thoughts you had, and be as descriptive as you can, because it's really important. Put down what you think, how you were feeling, what thoughts came into your head at that time, and then look at it again and think, is there a better way I could have dealt with that? Looking back on it now, not being involved in that situation, could I have done it differently? And then you may start to get yourself some tips of how you could have dealt with it a little bit differently, or prepared yourself better for that particular situation. Because you can guarantee, you've been to one domestic, you're going to go to a ton more. It's not just going to be a one-off. There's going to be lots of other stuff that you're going to be involved with. And then the crucial part of journaling is, we've discussed something that's impacted you in a negative way. It's really important that the end of when you've done that is to then think of what went well today. So I don't want you finishing on a negative of, oh, this went wrong and I got this wrong and that happened and blah, 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 so that you've got all this stuff going on in your head. You've taken yourself out of that emotional place, and you've looked at how you felt, how you thought, what you could do differently. So you're now looking at a solution. So if that incident came again or something similar, you've already got something in mind to help you. And then what I want you to do is look at, okay, so that was one incident. So maybe I've done an 8, 10, 12-hour shift. That was one incident that I felt didn't go great because. So what did I do well today? Was it stopping and helping the little old lady with the shopping into a car because she was struggling to get it in the back of the car? Was it going to the local community meeting and playing football with the kids? Was it going home and putting a tent up for your son because it's lovely weather and he wants to camp out tonight, Dad, and you're off tonight? Can we camp out under the stars? So always finish on a positive. Now, I'm probably going to be showing my age here, but back in the day, when I used to listen to the news at 10, it always ended with a nice positive story. So you had all the stuff at the beginning, which wasn't very pleasant, and but it always used to end on a good point. Because what we want you to do is we want you to see that it was one episode in a day. It wasn't your entire day. And you do not have to associate that is you. It was something that happened, may not have been your greatest moment, but you have ways to deal with that because you've already started to think of solutions for yourself. And if you come on the course, then you get tons of different things that can help you with that. But journaling on its own will help you to start to process what's going on for you. And as I say, if you don't want to write it out, talk to your phone. God, everybody gets the phone out. It's almost like it's an additional appendage. So bang a recorder on and just start talking. And then when you feel like it, listen to it back. And it makes a huge difference, because it's allowing your brain to work through something. But always try and finish on a positive, and then look at it and think, well, I've had one really bad event today, but look at this, I've got 20 or 30 different things that went really well today. And it puts things back in perspective for you.
Can you just recap quickly the different questions or points you want people to cover in that journaling, be it audio or writing it down?
Absolutely. So the first thing is, what happened? Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who else was there? How did it make you feel? What thoughts did you have? Now that you're not in that situation and you're not kind of in the emotion of it all, you can kind of step back and look back at it. Could you see where you could have done something differently? Were you totally unprepared for that particular situation? Could you have avoided that situation and got the job done? And then at the end of there, I want you to start looking at something of a much more positive nature, so that you've got a list of positives to outweigh the negative. Because you can guarantee you've had one bad thing, your mind will be totally focused on one bad thing all day long. Oh, it was horrendous. I did this, I did that. Oh, it was awful. But if you actually step back from that and look at it in a almost like you're a director of a play. So you're watching the play going in front of you. That's what you're doing. You're assessing it. You're looking at it. Can it be improved? And then you think, right, okay, so how can we do it differently next time? And what are the good things that came out of that performance? Because your whole day is a performance. So what did you do in that day that you can say, well, actually, that made me smile, or I had a laugh with the guys, or actually the chief inspector came in and said I'd done a great job. Because we're great as human beings at getting rid of all the good stuff and just focusing totally on the negative. And with journaling, provided you do it in the way I've suggested, and you finish on positives, you'll start to see that you're starting to rebalance things. So where you're thinking everything's horrific, it's actually not. It's probably more like that. The day's great and you mucked up somewhere, or something didn't go quite right.
And remember, that piece of paper or the document that you're writing into, or your voice memo if you're recording it, they're great listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you ever realized that we need people to listen much more than give us advice? Because sometimes just telling people the story helps you process it and give you clarity. When I have a major decision to make, there's a number of people that I speak to. Not necessarily because they can sometimes, give me a new idea or perspective that maybe I hadn't considered, but just for me to verbalize things makes it clearer, because, you've just experienced something. It's this whole mess. Oh my God, I'm putting it into words now. And actually, from what Ginny is saying, it starts a bit like a statement. What happened? Where? When? Who was there? And then how did it make me feel? And carry on. So you're used to, this kind of writing or communicating anyway. Use that and, do that more and more often, because then you have process. There's catharsis in writing things down. And it shouldn't replace peer support. But if you don't have it, or if it helps you even more, then do it. So this is something that maybe, what do you think, Ginny? What might be the effects of doing this? If you're going through traumatic incidents and you start doing this, what kind of changes might people see perhaps? How might it impact them?
Well, you're going to see the situation for what it was rather than the thing that you focused on. So even if you're looking at that incident, and if you restrict yourself to looking at the good parts of the incident, they're going to outweigh the bad bits for sure. So it's about processing that. You'll find that it starts to make sense to you. You start to become less emotionally attached to that situation. And remember, when you're writing it down or you're speaking into your phone or whatever, the way you're going to do this, there's no judgment, because nobody's talking back and you're making a judgment, and you're not going to shock anybody. So it's not the fear of speaking to someone and saying, I did this, and they all go, oh my God. Nobody's doing that. So you're not putting yourself up for ridicule, for judgment. It's totally confidential, because it's just between you and your piece of paper or your phone. But it's going to allow you and give you time after an event to work through everything that happened. And again, if you use some of the breathing exercises that we said last time, if you feel a little bit anxious about all that, use the breathing exercise, bring yourself down. Tell your body, hang on a minute, guys, I don't need to be doing this. All I'm going to do is recount the event. I just need to process it better, because I haven't processed it. There was things coming from every direction and I haven't been able to process it. And I haven't had that conversation because there was no one to talk to. So use the tools and techniques that we've been giving you, because they will help you. You know, this is great because it helps you process the whole event, and it will give you the opportunity to analyze it. If you like, look for the evidence. Look for evidence of how badly you did and how well you did. And guarantee you how well you did is up here, because you're all professional, well-trained police officers, and that's what you do. This is you. This is your job. So I know that you are good, and I know full well that all the good stuff is way up here and the bad stuff is down here. We need to just get you to see that. So it's an opportunity for you to look at it dispassionately and see that actually, yeah, it were, you know, excuse my vernacular, it was a little bit of a shitty event. However, look at all the good stuff. Look at all of this. Look what I did. And then think, hang on a minute, let's just get this back into perspective. Yeah, so the journal will help you get that perspective. And as I say, there's no judgment. You're not shocking anybody. It's totally confidential. And it's better than not speaking or processing it with someone else. If there's no one else available, do this. I would recommend you do this anyway, whether you've spoken to somebody else or not, because potentially whatever you've said to someone, you may not have got everything out. Whereas with this, you're talking away, you're writing away, no one's interrupting you. There may be little bits in there that you haven't dealt with, and they may be the things that keep derailing you. So do this as well. And like Suzanne said, you used to writing a statement. This should be a doddle. I know when the feelings and the thoughts come in, that's when it's going to be a bit tricky for you. But come on, nobody's there to judge you. It's there to help.
A doddle means it should be simple and easy.
It does, yeah. Oh, I apologise. Yeah, I forget we're an international audience today. So yes, I apologise. It should be easy for you.
Yeah.
Or a doddle. There's a new word for people. You can start using that wherever you like. My permission is granted for that one.
And I really like how you put that. You will see the incident for what it is, not for how your emotions were involved in this.
Yeah.
Because you might just think, oh my God, this just happened. Well, actually, it was just, and okay, fair enough. It's just that clearly needed clarity, I think, that this provides. So we've had a few comments here about this. So for Jen Klein being very kind here. I assume this is for Ginny. Ginny is the wisdomous person here. And
thank you, Jen.
Simple yet effective journaling, powerful. May Britt has used it herself. Has been helpful for me as I can go back over and over again and read my facts. Stuart has used it in the past.
That's actually just a really good point. It focuses you so that you can see the reality, not the perception of the reality. So the word of when Maybrit there has put and read my facts, that's brilliant, because that's exactly what it does. When your brain's off doing its thing and it's all going a little bit haywire, it grows arms and legs. And the reality is, if you can journal, it's taking you out of that emotional situation and it's allowing you just to put down the facts. And again, as cops, this is your business.
Yeah. Can you just move your mic up a little bit? We've lost a little bit of volume there when it moved down.
Yeah.
Stuart has used journaling in the past and found it really helpful. And yes, this also meets our need to be heard. Exactly. Your phone is a very good listener. And sometimes that's all you want. You just want someone to listen, and you don't even need them to give you any advice. And it's this whole, often when people talk about problems, they don't want advice anyway. They just need to vent, don't they? So I'm really glad that many of you have already had positive experiences with this, and I hope that you'll be able to take whatever you can from this and use it. And let us know what experiences you've had with this. And so what we learned on Tuesday was the breathing technique. Go back to the replay link that I sent out to get the breathing technique and the thought interrupters to, when you're noticing your brain is growing arms and legs and spinning out of control, there's things you can do to snap the brain out of it. You need to give it something to do. Give it a task. Count 5 square things, 5 red things in the room. So that was a really good tool. And today you learned about the journaling, either writing or recording, whatever works for you. Or, speak to a teddy bear if you have to. It doesn't matter. Just verbalize it somehow and get it out of there. And So you've seen that Ginny is able to teach tools and skills, and obviously she does that in a lot more detail in the emergency stress pit stop course. Now, the reason why we've called it emergency stress pit stop is because what are the fastest cars in the world? Ginny knows much more about that than me because I'm not interested in cars. She is. But, Formula One racing cars, even I know they go round and round and round and round. And do they go round and round and round until they fall apart? No, they pull over into a pit stop, and there's no shame in them getting refueled. And there's no shame in getting new tires, in them checking their brake pads and do an oil change and, the suspenders or suspension.
I think is I would go with suspension there, Suzanne. I don't think they wear suspenders, but hey, I don't know what Lewis Hamilton does underneath his leather. That's really up to him.
Right. So maybe he does have suspenders underneath. But anyway, the suspension, there's no shame in that. And actually, you come out of that pit stop, you get back on the race, and you're much stronger than when you came into the pit stop. And that's what we're offering here. So Jenny is going to take you through a process, and the journaling that she was talking about is actually part of that course. That's something that she actually requires you to do over a period of time. So there's a lot of self-reflection work involved. So the way the course looks is it's videos of Ginny basically teaching, explaining. There's exercises, there's examples of how to do the exercises, templates and everything. And a big part of that is you doing reflective work for you to really work out what is stressing me, what happened, how am I dealing with this? And then you start to see patterns. And then you say, okay, what do I do with this now? Can I reduce that? Can I get rid of it? How do I cope with it better if I can't reduce it or get rid of it? And some things you won't be able to remove from your life. So you need to find better tools to deal with that. And that is what you get from this course. You're no longer going to be this overwhelmed person who freezes or, who reacts and then wishes they had done it better. So this whole thing of what could I do differently next time? Hopefully there will be less and less. You think, actually, I'm quite pleased with how I reacted to it this time. And then go back to your journaling from a few weeks before when you started the course, thinking, oh, wow, I've come a long way. So this is what the course is offering you. And obviously, Ginny does one-to-one coaching. But if if this is not an option for you, then get it through your organization or get it yourself. And as I said, everybody who's registered on the /SRW Stress Resilient Workshops page will get the 10% discount code emailed to them. And also there's going to be a lucky winner at every workshop. We've already had a lucky winner from last Tuesday. So this is, again, the link to the course. Just read up about it. There's also an FAQ section. When you click through to book the course, then you actually get to the Academy page about the course, and you've got FAQs there in the bottom. It is confidential. We're not going to tell your employer that, what you're doing. If they are paying for you to do the course, then, and they ask us, have you accessed the course or have you completed it? We may tell them that, but that's it. Everything is absolutely confidential. And so you can really feel that you're in trusted hands there. Now let's get to hang on, there's a question. Jen, I imagine that all of these skills and tools in your course would be essential and applicable for firefighters as well, as they work very closely with police and emergencies?
100%. Anybody who works in police, fire brigade, any of these areas, this is going to work for you because you're working in an environment that the general public don't understand. Yeah. I've got a couple of friends who are firefighters, and I've discussed the course with them, and they said exactly the same thing. It would be highly applicable to them. So anybody in the emergency services, they don't even have to be, the ones who are on active duty. They could be a member of police staff. They suffer with it as well. And I know there was I can't remember the figures, but I know there's been recently a survey done of 911 operators. And they're actually the first people to get the call saying, my husband's just been shot or whatever it is. And they suffer with it as well. So, there's a lot of people out there who live in that, what am I trying to say? The work lifestyle that the emergency services have, and it's totally applicable to all those people.
Yeah, I've got a question here from Michael from Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for joining us again. Is the competition only open to active police officers? No. You're watching this, you can take part in the competition. Again, I've put my email address into the chat. It's contact@policesciencedoctor.com. And I don't have a drum roll, but here's the competition question. So Dr. Jacqueline Drew, that was the first video that I played you today. She talked about trauma and 2 other stresses, which are actually more harmful to policing. One of them was operational stress. What is the other stressor? That and the operational stress are more harmful than trauma. So the first person to email me the correct answer gets the course for free. The enrollment for everyone else, you get a 10% discount if you use the code that I'm going to email everyone who's registered for this webinar, and speak to your organization, see if they can't get people in bulk on there. It will work out cheaper than losing people off on sick leave because they're not dealing with it. So we're helping you to deal with it. And we will see you again at the next workshop on Wednesday, which is going to be about working through stress in policing. So I really hope that we'll see you there. I hope that you've got the competition question going. So the first person who sends me the right answer is going to get the course for free. And we're going to see you again on Wednesday, hopefully. Share this link, for where you register for the course with as many people as possible. Every workshop, the way we're doing it is a standalone workshop. So don't think, oh, I've missed the first 2. I can't watch the third one. Yes, you can. So just get your colleagues to watch. It's free and you learn a skill at the end as well. So, I don't know. I don't see a reason not to do it. And I hope you all had a good time. And I'm so glad that you joined us again from all over the world. And Marshall, I hope you have a wonderful night shift and you stay healthy. And I've seen everyone, Sweden, Trinidad, Merseyside, Wales, and Manchester, and wherever you guys were saying that you're from. I wish you a wonderful day.
Thanks for attending, guys. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for watching. I hope you found this content useful. You can get access to each episode's transcript with key learning points, timestamps, and references if you get yourself onto my mailing list. Just go to the main website on policesciencedoctor.com, and on the bottom of each page you will find a sign-up form for notifications of new content. Just enter your first name, your preferred email address, and the type of organization you work for. You will not get any spam. This is just for me to let you know about new content and for you to get access to all the transcripts.